Hello everyone, you're welcome to this three-part lecture series which will be focusing on strings. How do we use strings in Python environment? What are strings? How do you use them? What are the likely operations that you can carry out on your strings? I hope to be able to demystify all of this in the next three lectures that we will be having. Let's cut through to our VS Code and see what we can do with strings. Strings are text that we often work with on day-to-day basis as human beings. So for those who think programming is just about mathematics, this is an opportunity for them to see that you can do non-maths related tasks within programming environment. So we'll be programming with strings. Let's first talk about creating a variable. We'll create a variable something this simple. We'll say first name. This first name is a variable that will keep string value. That's just a very simple task. We've gone through this before. But how do you start assigning values to that first name? You need to call the name. Once you put the first 2-3 characters, Python IDE, whichever one you're using, will give you suggestions of words that seem to match what you are trying to type. So in this case, I have first name. I can press tab to accept it. And then I can go in here and say Joseph. This is the value that I am assigning to that variable. We've gone through this before. And if you want to see the content of that variable, you say print and then you pass the first name. This is basic. We've gone through it in a prior session, but just as a quick recap, when you run the program, you'll see the output here as Joseph. But this looks bland, kind of. Can we spice it up a little bit more to make it more interactive? Yes, the answer is yes, we can do it. So how can we do that? I can simplify it by saying my result should be like this. My first name, in fact, we can just simplify it and say first name. And then after it, I'll put first name. And inside here, I'll put the result. Print this result for me. And when you run this, you will see it's printing this in a form in which you don't want it. Now, this is not the mindset that we had. We just want to say first name, colon, then it should put Joseph in front of it. So one other option you have is to say, okay, if this is not working, why can't you just cut this off here and put it directly in here? So it becomes just a single output for you on that line. And when you run that, you get your desired result. First name, colon, then it puts Joseph in front of it. You can repeat this for as many variables as you want. One thing you should pay attention to is the fact that we've been declaring variables with different data types and we've been manually assigning values to them. What if you do not want to approach it this way? Is there any other way we can make our program more interactive? The answer is yes. So how do we go about doing that? I can replace this Joseph with an input function. And I'll come in here and say, what's your first name? And I put a question mark. So this is the prompt that my users will see. When I run this program, we will get this prompt saying, what's your first name? And our cursor will be blinking at the back of that question mark, prompting us to type something from the keyboard. And whatever we type is going to be stored in this variable name. And that is what this line 6 is going to display to us. This is more interactive than predefining the value that goes into first name. So let's see how this one works. You click on run. It's here. The cursor is right there asking me Okay, here I will say Susan, or I say Lizzie. And then when I press enter, you would see that it has stored Lizzie in that variable called first name, and it is displaying the result to us. Let me clear this part of the screen. Now, a number of people may look at it and say, this is nice. Why can't we have a situation where when the program is running, this cursor here where our input is required, why is it not blinking on the next line so that we would see it more clearly? Yeah, you can do that. It's not impossible. So what I would do is to go into my code and put this escape character here. So this returns control to the next line. And when you run this, rather than the cursor blinking, okay, this was where I had before. Let's test. It finishes. Never mind. I'll clear that screen. When I run this code again, you can see that my cursor is now on that second line asking for our name. Then we can say the first name is Richard. It accepts that input from us and it is reading that and displaying it for us using line 6. That's one way which I think we need to master when we are writing more interactive program. Don't get fixated with declaring variables and then assigning value manually. People should be given the opportunity to pick values on their own rather than you predetermining what the values will be. That's one way of doing this. I can also copy this and then quickly paste, make slight modifications to this and say, I need to capture my last name also, or users should give us their last name. So we've printed first name here. We can make a copy of that statement, take it to the next line, make a slight adjustment, which is going to be LA. And we must not forget to change the parameter that we are passing as last name. So when I run this code as it is, it will ask me my first name or user's first name. We can say Bill. And then it's asking for the last name here. We say Clinton. And then it displays the result to us. First name is Bill, last name is Clinton. And this is a very clean code that we can start making use of rather than the previous standard where we were assigning values after creating the variable. So yeah, we have moved one step, higher than we were before. But is this the best option that we can have as programmers? My mind tells me no, because I can also improve on this. So rather than writing these two lines, 4 and 5, just to capture two variables, it's possible for me to write a single line that will capture both variables, and then I'll be able to display the result. People may be wondering, how is that going to work? You need to ask for the two variables separately. Nah, you don't have to. So I can just come in here and ask the question, what's your full name? And in this case, I'm assuming that your full name has your first name and your last name. You're not putting your middle name there. That's the only caveat there. And if that assumption is true, I'll come in here and say, remove line 5. We do not need it anymore. So I need my first name, comma, last name is equal to assign whatever you get from the keyboard. Whatever people type from the keyboard is captured by the input function here. And then I'm going to go in. If you do this, it won't work. I need to go to the end and say, do the split method. And when you run this, you will see the way it works. So it's asking, what's the full name? I put in Bill Clinton. And when I press enter, you would see that the first word, it splits the full name that we typed in here, which is Bill Clinton. It splits it into its components, and the first component was assigned to first name, and then the second component, which in this case is Clinton, was assigned to last name, and it was able to print both out for us this way. Can I enhance this further? People say this is good enough, but I would say no. I can argue that I am in the position to enhance this by reducing the number of lines that will write to maybe 2 or 3. So how do I go about doing that? I'll bring in the notation called F string notation. This is a way in which you can format your output. I'll put a small letter F here, and I'll say first name is this, and last name is, in fact, you may retain your previous notation of putting this, but then when you get here, be careful. This is the major syntax that I have here. So I've put print F, and then I concocted something like this. What do I want to put in this curly bracket? I want first name to be there. So I'm in the position to type first name, and when I get here, I'm in the position to type last name. And when I run this, it will pick whatever we type in here and then substitute the appropriate parameters into my line 6, and it will display the results to me. So previously we had multiple lines. In this case, we have shortened it into something, much fewer. So let's use the same name, and then we can verify the result. It should be Clinton. All right, so you can see that it has displayed first name is Bill and last name is Clinton. Instead of us writing multiple lines to display just 2 parameters, we have done that in a single line. You need to take note of this method. There is another method that I can use to display the output. So let me copy that line and then put it on the second line. So I'll remove the F at the beginning. I'll remove the parameter inside, and at the outer part of my statement, I'll put format. And it's asking me where are the parameters that you want to pass to these 2 placeholders that you have. So in my head, I want to pass first name as the first parameter, then last name as the second parameter, in that same sequence. So when this program is executing, it will show me first name is first name. It will pick the value or the content of this memory location called first name and puts it here. And then when it gets to this second part, it will look into this memory. Whatever is there, it stores into this location, and we will have our result. Let's run this and see what we get. It's asking us for the name, put Bill Clinton. And then when we execute, we'll see the result is exactly what line 6 gives us. These are ways in which you can handle strings in the most basic format. So in this video, we've been able to see how you can declare a string variable, how you can manually assign value to them, and how you can automatically assign value to them. And we went as far as reducing the number of lines that you can write using the input statement to capture multiple values on the same line using the split method of the string object. That allows us to have first name and the last name captured from the same value, from the same input. And then in lines 6 and 7, we introduced 2 ways of formatting your output. Rather than using print command in multiple ways, you can write print command in a single line, and you will be able to have a more appealing output that your users will be quite excited about. This is the end of the first lecture on string manipulation. In the second and the third lectures, I'll be showing us much more features which will empower us to be better programmers. Stay tuned. I look forward to seeing you then. Bye bye.